Welcome to the Business Hour podcast. My name is Shane, your host. We're here in Magic Door Studio, Balbriggan. We've got a very interesting guest today. I'd like you to meet Marion Gilsenan from Red River Yoga. Hi, Marion.
Hello, Shane. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Delighted. So tell me a little about your business, what you do.
So I have a wee yoga studio in Navan, downtown in Bakery Lane. It's just behind Chekhov's Cafe there off Trimgate Street.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been there for the last few years. So we have yoga classes in there. We have sound baths. We run day retreats. We do a lot of healing and just a lot of relaxation treatments for anyone who's stressed or needs to kind of recover from anything.
Okay.
So all sorts of...
So like trauma recovery and like addiction recovery, stuff like that?
Yeah, well, to be honest with you, all yoga is trauma recovery.
Fair point.
The truth be told, yeah. And so addiction, mental health, any way somebody has been struggling, it doesn't really matter once they start to reconnect with their body and just take a little bit of time for themselves, the healing starts to take place.
How did you get into yoga in the first place?
So I had a coffee shop in Navan.
Okay.
And I'd probably been into yoga, done a little bit of yoga before that, but a lady came in one evening and she was looking for a place to teach yoga.
Mm-hmm.
So I suggested that she go to the community centre around by the church, which was just around the corner from the coffee shop. So she did, and she went in there and she found a space. And then she came back to say thank you and would I like to go to her class? So I said I'd love to, because I was kind of working really hard at the time and busy single mother, and I just needed something, and
something for you.
That hour of yoga saved my life.
Yeah, bliss.
Probably, I'd say I went solidly every week for around 5 years until she left Navan. Yeah.
How long ago was that?
Oh, the late 90s.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very good. So you obviously fell in love with it immediately.
I fell in love with it immediately, yeah. But I'd loved it. I went to my first yoga class when I went to college, and I just loved it. Yeah. And then I was living in Berlin, and I remember I was doing an Iyengar class, and the teacher used to say, "Oh, you should go to San Francisco and do the training." And the way it didn't happen. And then when Eileen left Nav, and then I was just like, "Oh, I want to do this yoga," and so I went and I trained then.
So it's a kind of an unfulfilled dream that you always maybe look back and said maybe that was a path you could have taken, then eventually you got a chance to.
Yeah, perhaps. Yeah, or just I think the time was right then.
Okay, yeah. Life like lined up better.
Yeah, something like that.
For someone that doesn't understand what yoga is, can you give me a little like the history of yoga? Where does it come from? There's obviously a lot of different types of yoga. I believe. Can you tell me a little about what is yoga for the uninitiated?
So yoga is the science of self-realization.
Okay.
I would say. And it's about really coming back to yourself, to who you really are. And nowadays you look on Instagram and you see all these bodies doing these exercises, but it has very, very little to do with that.
That's not reality.
It's not really a set of exercises at all.
Okay.
Nowadays, probably the reason we do the exercises is because there's so much stress in our systems that we have to move before we can actually sit still.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas originally, a lot of the yogis would have just sat still, for days in caves.
Okay.
And it's the idea is that we don't look without, we look within. It's when we look within that we find our true selves. That's really what it's about.
Is it originated in India?
Yeah, so the word yoga is an Indian term, and they say it originated in India. But where it came from before it got to India, so India and China, the Chinese would have kind of Tai Chi, the Japanese would have another form as well, and it's kind of all working with your
energy,
physical and your energetic body as well. And there is a field of thought that might say that, the monks in Ireland doing their, bowing to the sun, doing their prayers to the sun, was a form of yoga too, like sun salutations, and that it went actually from the west onto the east. There is a thought.
And nowadays, is there a split in the schools of between east and west, or is it west imitating badly east, or is it progress?
Isn't that the history of the world?
A fair point.
You know what I mean? Yeah. Where do we learn anything? Like there's a lot of Indians coming to class, to my class in Navan studio. Do you know what I mean? And they have never done yoga in India, but they're thinking or seeing the benefits of it. But they're bringing their particular beauty and grace to the class anyway. That they have still held on to.
That's amazing. And do you ever learn anything from students who come from different backgrounds and stuff?
You learn from every single student.
Okay.
You're not really, it's not really a teaching when you're in a class. It's everything happens together, and
Okay.
yeah, everything.
It's
It's like a
beautiful.
cauldron.
Yeah. Oh, that's well put. Yeah, it's like a cauldron. You mentioned about sound baths a minute ago. You do sound baths. I mean, it seems to be something that's become very popular. I know quite a few people who get an awful lot out of it. Um, what again for the uninitiated? What are sound baths? How do they work?
So sound bath is probably a modern term. The Tibetans, the yogis, and just the monks would have used what they call sound bowls. They're the little kind of copper or metal bowls, and they would bang them, and it makes a little sound.
Mm.
And then over the last probably 50 years, people started to experiment with it a little bit more and look into it and look into how the sound affects people's energy field or their
Frequency
body
and stuff.
frequency.
Mm.
And so now it's become a really big thing.
Mm.
And there's loads of companies that make really amazing gongs and all sorts of types of bowls, metal and also crystal bowls as well. And to be honest with you, it's the medicine of the future. Like the amount of amazing healings I've seen taking place in a just a very simple sound bath.
Does it help people to realign themselves? Would that
It
be how you
helps
describe
them.
it? Or
So
to
it's frequency. It's like when everything kind of comes into comes into a settling, and everybody then can relax together, and some kind of magic happens. It's like a frequency, yeah, and it always depends on whoever's in the room and how the space is held, but it's very, very powerful. And like I've seen people get up off after a sound bath and say that they could see the light going through the tubes, we'll say their arteries or their veins. And
wow.
I've heard and more than one person saying, if I had known about this, I wouldn't have had to have surgery. You know, I've heard more than one person say that.
Am I correct in saying that often people do it blindfolded, so they cut off their
Well,
sight senses and stuff,
well,
or just keep their eyes
yeah.
closed?
So in yoga and in sound baths, if you have an eye pillow, if you just close off the light, it just brings you deeper inside.
Yeah, yeah.
And
you're more
it's like
connected with
you're going inside in yourself. Yeah.
How are sorry? What would you? Is there an original name? You mentioned that there was like a more sound baths is the modern interpretation of it. Is there a?
Well, I think that the way we do them now is modern. I think that
Okay.
they did them. The monks did them in temples in Tibet,
And was that part of the
it wasn't
broader
so much-
yoga field?
No, it was
separate thing.
more of a ceremonial
Okay.
thing. Then I think, yeah.
Have you been to Tibet? Or would
Well,
you like to go?
I've been very close to the Tibetan border, but I didn't actually cross the border. Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah.
You seem like you're just from our little chats, a quick chat earlier. You're a very worldly person. Have you done a bit of traveling?
I did a bit of traveling, in the early 90s. So I would have lived in Mexico for a year.
Oh my God.
I lived in an orphanage there in Mexico with
Amazing.
3 children. And then I did a bit of traveling in India, China,
Okay.
Russia then in a couple of years later. Yeah.
Phenomenal.
Yeah.
So aside from your classes and stuff, do you do anything else? Do you do retreats or
So we do 1-day retreats, whereas I try to, because we're in Navan, I try to spend a few hours in the studio doing probably relaxation, maybe movement, sound healing. And then we take to the Boyne. We walk by the Boyne as well. So a little bit of forest bathing or kind of connection with nature. Yeah.
The Boyne fascinates me as a river. So I grew up in Edenderry, County Offaly, which is beside I grew up beside the Boyne River. And now I live in Dunboyne. And obviously the connection to ancient Celtic history and, all around the part of Meath, Cossaroir, Tale of Tara and everything else, and how the Celts viewed the Boyne and, the spirit kind of went down the Boyne and out into the...
Boyne is a goddess.
Yeah, exactly.
For sure, yeah.
Yeah,
and she has her own energy and her own power.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no messing with
Yeah,
her.
it's hard to describe, but yeah, maybe you have better relationship or understanding with it. So you bring people out to the forest and you do...
So we just walk down to the ramparts and we just take a little walk out by the Boyne, but it's just a really mindful connection with...
Do you ever do yoga out there?
Sometimes, yeah, if the weather is nice, yeah. I actually spent 7 years the other side of the river in a retreat centre, residential retreat centre.
Okay.
Just by the Boyne. and that was all about the healing of the Battle of the Boyne. Yeah.
So if somebody wanted to go on one of your retreats, how would they go about doing that today?
Literally just go on Instagram or Facebook, Red River Yoga, and message me. Yeah.
And send you a message,
Send a message,
yeah, and they can join
or
stuff.
the website, yeah.
Are they more often in summer or
We
is it
try
all
to
year
do. We try to do probably one day a month. Yeah.
Okay, all right, cool.
Yeah.
So you must have
And
some
it's
people.
usually on a Sunday. Yeah.
Okay. I guess that you've been doing it for a while. Do you have people who've been with you for a very long time? I mean, is it something that, or is it life
or I
dependent?
think it's people spend time for a couple of years really close and do lots, and then they kind of move on, and then there's a new kind of group is what happens, I think. Yeah.
What about festivals and events and that kind of stuff? Do you go to others? Are you involved in festivals and events?
A little bit. We have a yoga festival in Meath in County Meath, Meath Yoga Festival.
Oh, yes.
So I've been involved in that since 2012. Now there was a little break for COVID.
Okay.
And the festival did take a little trip to Lough Erne, to the Hare Krishna Island for 2 years as well.
Oh, wow.
But it's back now in a place called Rathenry, which
Okay.
is basically a field outside the village of Minalty. It's on a ley line straight across from Lacrue, from the ancient site at Lacrue. So we had a very powerful solstice weekend there when the land, we woke the land up for sure. The land has been activated.
That was just, the solstice just gone?
It's gone by, yeah.
How many people attend an event like that?
We're probably around, it's kind of small, maybe 150 or so probably.
And did they come from the locality or further afield?
No, further afield, yeah. Like I think one person came from Germany this year.
Okay.
We've had people come from Argentina in the past.
Okay, amazing. And did they camp and stuff, or did they stay in town?
Yeah, camp.
They camp as well?
Yeah.
That sounds wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah, really wonderful. It's fascinating stuff. It's a fascinating field. And I think it's, as you mentioned, the social media interpretation of what yoga is has kind of like maybe changed the idea of it for maybe younger people. But I think once you kind of get into it and start to understand what it is, that it's not about, external, how you look and stuff. It's about, you mentioned at the start, about self and sense of self and understanding stuff. If you were to go back to the start of your journey, is there anything you would change, or are you perfectly happy with the path you've gone on? I know I would say no regrets.
So when I went to India, that was probably around 92 or 93. I went to an ashram, and it was my friend who wanted to go, and I think it was a Christian ashram. The lady was like a nun, but she was also a yoga teacher. And for whatever reason, she just happened to be not there. I think she was only there for one day when we were there. I think if I was going again, I would have had more interest. It was kind of like, it was more like a little holiday. I wasn't really connected to what yoga was at the time. Okay. But I remember that lady saying to me, she was teaching us how to chant Om. And I remember her saying to me, you have it. You already have that, And at the time...
How do you mean you already have that, as in you...
It's in part, she could recognize something in me that I didn't even understand at the time,
Yeah.
So I think if, in hindsight, maybe I should have listened more, or maybe it was a pity she wasn't there for a few more days at that stage. But I think that everything happens as well in its own divine timing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It seems to me that was just a little directional signage for you later in life to look back on and be like, okay, well, that's,
yeah, well, like I would have started off as a social worker, child protection social worker. And,
very good.
Then I would have done time.
Was that before or after you went to Mexico?
Before and after.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very good. So that's what you trained at?
I trained as a social worker, and I would have worked in the field for a number of years. And then I would have worked in the probation service, and there's
very interesting.
There's nothing I would think that's it's the only... The solution to everything is to just look within and to regain your own internal power and your own sense of who you are as a human being. Yeah, there's nothing else. And we can't force anybody else. We can just do it for ourselves.
Very good. You mentioned about the probation service. Were you working in jails? Or is this
no? Well,
post-release?
Probation service, you work with the court. So I wasn't really working in jails very much. You might have to just visit one or two prisoners. Yeah.
And do you think that people who are, in a more difficult place in life, can they benefit more from yoga, or is it,
Oh, totally. Yeah. Like there's, I used to teach in a recovery centre.
Okay.
And a lot of the people in there would have been in prison, and like they would have raved about a yoga teacher in Portlaoise prison. That's years ago now. But yeah,
really,
everyone gets it. When everyone, as soon as you sit on a mat and close your eyes, you get it. Yeah.
How do you find running a business, I guess, or the kind of the more business side of it, as it seems to be chalk and cheese to what yoga is, and nowadays, obviously, to have something like you have, you need to have a social media presence. You need to put up content. But it seems to be divergent from the core of what you're doing as a business. How do you put those two things together? Do you compartmentalize?
To be honest with you, I kind of ignore the social media side of it,
okay.
which isn't really the answer to anything. But I suppose we all have to, any artist or anyone has to put their business hat on as well as their,
Absolutely.
the creative side. We all have to figure that out for ourselves.
Yeah.
I think it's easier now for you. I think there's much more awareness now
of what
around
yoga.
Yeah. So it's much easier to get a job maybe in a school, or, there's more business than there was in the past as well. Yeah. And also I think yoga teachers are finding more creative ways of presenting yoga as well.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I guess, as you say, you have to put on your business hat, no matter, even if you're the most creative artist, you have to engage in the system
or get a good agent.
Or get a good agent, if somebody who can do it. And so most of your customers and clients, and that is that word of mouth, or how do you generate business?
I'd say it's word of mouth. It really is mostly, yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe a bit of social media, but I wouldn't be great at it. So I think it's word of mouth, really. Yeah.
The lady who you went to her first, that came into your coffee shop, is she still doing yoga? Did she ever come to your classes?
Eileen, she was Eileen Dwyer. That was Kundalini yoga. No, I don't think so. But I think she would have used it. She was an occupational therapist, and the Kundalini yoga has a lot of, techniques that are useful for everybody. So I'd say she still uses it and did use it. Yeah. I don't know if she's still practicing or not. She's in New York now.
A little bit off topic, but you mentioned earlier you do wedding celebrancy.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Is that, I assume that's just a separate thing entirely.
It's a separate. I think. Well, sometimes people who come to class would say, "Well, actually, I'd like if you would do my
officiate your wedding."
Yeah. So the last one was lovely. It was actually in Lockrid's pub in Navan.
Oh yeah.
A couple who had been engaged for 39 years.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah, it was really lovely.
Did they have kids?
They had both from separate relationships.
Okay.
Very, very
Awesome.
interesting backstory. That couple. It was very special. Yeah.
What do you find you get out of celebrancy? I mean, I love love personally. I also do a little celebrancy, and I enjoy being like just being able to be a part of somebody's day like that, and it's such a trusted responsibility. That's what I mean. What do you enjoy about it?
I was blown away by it because it was the very first one I did. It was this chap Cormac, and he just suggested that I do it, and that was when I was living beside the Boyne as well. And
this is how long back is this?
That was probably around 2017.
Okay, cool. Very cool.
But so they literally wanted me. They had their own script, and they just literally wanted me to just hold the space and to read it or whatever.
MC it.
But the energy was really powerful. I was amazed by it. Yeah. And at the time, it was probably Lunasa, so I think kind of the goddess Danu Anya was kind of present there by the Boyne as well. It was very powerful, and everybody felt it. So yeah, it's really heart opening, and there is an energy to it as well, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's a very, very special thing. And yeah, thoroughly enjoyable. You mentioned about the goddess Lunasa, and that my kids are learning about pagan goddesses and stuff currently, which is fantastic. Can you, this is again probably a little off topic from your business, but can you teach me a little more about Irish goddesses and stuff, and why aren't they as well known as it seems they should be? It seems like it's our history, our culture, our tradition. Is it Christianity has come along and pushed that all to the fringe, or
it's also to do with the divine feminine, and the divine feminine was kind of shifted, I think, off center for a number of millennium even, I think. Whereas that goddess energy, that feminine energy is coming back in now, I think. So once again, it's like a process, and a lot of our mythology and a lot of our history is shrouded in mystery as well, because we didn't write. There was nothing written down until the monks wrote it, and then they were coming from a Christian perspective as well. So they probably didn't even really understand some of it.
Do you find that you're able to integrate your understanding of Celtic mysticism into your yoga practices and so on, or do they build off each other, or how does that
I
work?
think so. Yeah, I think it all goes hand in hand. It's just when you start to reconnect with your body and your emotions and your energy fields, it's beyond labels.
Mm,
Their
mm,
language is a very modern thing, really.
yeah,
Before language, we had telepathy.
yeah,
Even in a way, the way I'm here,
mm,
there are lots of little synchronicities.
mm,
That's the way we operated. It's kind of beyond what modern man thinks in
mm,
his limited, tiny brain or
mm,
head.
mm,
So, naming a goddess is one way of describing something, but behind that there's an energy that
mm,
we have yet to probably even be able to comprehend. It's
mm,
like we're slowly starting to reconnect with ourselves, with the
mm.
earth. Before, I could have been doing yoga for 10 years before I realized every bird is talking to me, every tree is talking to me, but I couldn't hear, that
Really?
kind of a way.
Every blade of grass.
Every blade of grass, yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. And it's just to be able to honor that and really to reconnect with our indigenous roots and who we were, our ancestors.
What do you think about the devastation and destruction that humankind is causing to the planet that we live in, and our separateness,
All
our
we
feeling
can do is reconnect with our divinity and heal
on an
ourselves
individual basis?
on an individual basis. And as we do that, it just peters out to everyone else.
Yeah,
We can do nothing else, only be aligned
yeah.
and align ourselves and ground ourselves.
If there was one wish you could make for how to get that across to people, I mean, so many people live, and obviously they would tremendously benefit from what you do. They live very stressful lives. It's got to pay mortgages and and raise their kids and meet all that kind of stuff. Like modern life is very fast paced and very hard. If there's one wish you could make to like somehow show people the light of what yoga can do for them, how would you do that?
Well, I would just say, just take a minute.
Okay.
Doesn't even have to be go to a yoga class. If you're stressed, just take a little minute, close your eyes, put your feet on the floor, and just take a little minute.
Very good. Yeah.
Simple as that.
Straightforward.
Very straightforward.
Mm.
And then, like lots of people have it in the back of their head, I should go to yoga, and it takes them years to get there.
Mm.
But if it's more stress to get there, then, just take your minute.
Are there people? I you mentioned you're not big on kind of social media and that kind of stuff. Are there people who you look up to as role models that maybe have a better online presence for somebody who's at home and they can't make it to a class, that they can go look up and just look up maybe breathing techniques or poses and stuff, that kind of thing, or is that?
Well,
is
there's
that
a girl
something
called Una who works in my studio. She's off now for the summer, but she was in Bali there, and she just became a yoga teacher like I don't know, last year or something. Yeah. But she's really, really good on Instagram and showing people stuff.
What's her name? Or
I think it's Yoga with Una.
Yoga with Una.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
OONAGH.
OONAGH. Yeah.
But anyway, she's a great presence, and I'm really impressed with her. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, it's again, it just, as you say, for people who, a lot of us can't, and it's part of the reason people are swallowing social media content, is that short form, easily digestible stuff is not time consuming. It's not too much of an investment of time, whereas going to a class sometimes can feel like it's a thing, and as you say, sometimes it can take weeks, months to get there. That said, from my own personal experience, those who've gotten over that step and go to classes, they find what you found, I think, the first time, which is just bliss, escapism from being a single mom and all of the drain of life. I don't do yoga. I play five-a-side football for 1 hour a week, chasing a leather ball, and I don't think about anything else. And it's phenomenal, for my body and my mind. And I think a lot of people in modern life, they don't take that time for themselves to
as you say, just 1 hour. Yeah. And the thing about yoga as well is that there's an aspect that it should be a discipline, so that then maybe that you would do something every day as well. Mm. And I have a chair yoga class on a Thursday evening at 6.
Chair yoga?
Yeah, which is phenomenal.
So
it's so simple. Okay. You just sit in a chair and you do a bit of breathing, and I call it chair yoga, but actually I think it's called chair movement and meditation on the website. Okay. Whatever, it doesn't matter. But there's a lady who was coming since maybe last Christmas. And so she was looking for the recordings, but then I realised, well, she was looking for the recordings, but she wasn't actually doing them. And then it was on Zoom, so they all got kind of wiped out, the way it gets full or something, and they were gone. And then she was like, oh, where's all those recordings? So then she started, she was coming to class every Thursday, but then she started to do the class every day. So now I think she's on 65 or 66 days at the moment.
Amazing.
And she's just raving about it. She's just like, she feels like a different person. She's just releasing years of tension. And like that's 3/4 of an hour once a day. And she needed it probably, but it's doing her so much good. And it's so simple. Like just even for anyone who's over 50, probably even to do a chair class, it would keep them out of hospital, it would keep them healthy for at least 10 more years. I'd say 20. Like, you see loads of old people who are in great shape who are yoga teachers,
That's absolutely phenomenal. Those classes, would you ever, I hate to be like too businessy, but would you ever try to put those somewhere and sell them as courses, or
Sure, of course, it's on my to-do list.
Is it? Yeah.
When I finish off this yoga festival stuff and whatever else I have to do.
Yeah, I hear you. Well, we're here at Magic Door Studio, and they certainly can help you with that if you have the content already made as well. It's just a matter of putting it together and putting it out there, because I think an awful lot of people could benefit from it. And I think somebody like you have a strong presence about you and strong energy, and I think the people who connect with you in person, especially, would be very grateful to be able to have that accessible to them, where they don't have to, the generation older to me, in my family, a lot of them don't drive. They're very reliant on other people and that, and so to be able to actually consume that content, that sounds terrible, but to be able to use that content at home in their own time would be
it would do them good if they were able to figure out the turning on Zoom or whatever you'd have to do. Yeah, no, it would. And it's like people would have to be open to trying it as well.
Yeah.
This lady had to make up her mind that this is what she was going to do, and then she did. Yeah, which is great.
I was at a couple of days ago. I was at a pool, and they had a water aerobics class for seniors, and it was just tremendous. And I was talking to one of the guys afterwards, and he's like it's basically the only reason he leaves the house is to go do this water aerobics class, and it's tremendous for his movement. But not only that, but there's a social dimension and all that kind of stuff. So I would say to anybody, if they can get to one of your classes, go.
Yeah, and to be fair, the people who come to my class are just gorgeous as well, and loads of really lovely stuff going on there. Yeah.
How did you get on during COVID? Was that a complete disruptor, or did it provide opportunities? Or?
Well, because I was up by the Boyne, I didn't really notice COVID, and the people who were coming were just coming anyway.
They were just doing it anyway.
Yeah, we might need to unrecord that, but didn't.
No, it's fine.
Yeah.
It's over now. No one's gonna.
Yeah.
And so you didn't need to upend your business or
probably my classes might have been. At some point there was no classes maybe, but there was still other stuff going on all the time. Yeah.
So you started a festival in 2012.
Yeah.
Was that with other people? You're obviously
so
a part of that.
So it was kind of it was my friend who had been she was a Kundalini yoga teacher as well, and she had been at a festival in Sweden, and she was telling me about it. And we were walking around the Trashin Field in Minalty, and I was saying, well, sure, we could do a festival here.
Yeah.
And then we did. And it went on then for a number of years, and it was really lovely. And the feedback was amazing. People loved it, yeah. And lots of people decided to become yoga teachers because of going to the festival as well. So it was really nice.
Do you go to other festivals in Ireland?
Do you know something? Well, I've taught at Electric Picnic, and I would go to Body and Soul a bit, and I might go to All Together now this year, yeah.
It's fun too. There's other festivals in around Meath, around the Hill of Tara and stuff. Is it Ugnas Festival? Festival of Fire or
Ishnock, that's over in Westmeath.
Sorry.
Yeah, I've been to that as well.
Yeah, I think they have some yoga and stuff there.
Yeah, they do. Yeah. And there might be another one. Anyway, better not say anything about that either.
Except that. Okay, it's the problem. You can give away too much sometimes.
It's all about the vibe.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's like spirit comes through, and spirit decides. Like the land, like the festival last week or the week before on Solstice, the land called the people in. The people who were supposed to be there were the people who were meant to be there. The land is calling the people at the moment. Yeah.
Well, I mean, it seems to me that yoga and Irish people and Irish spirits are very well aligned, and perhaps maybe not the modern iteration of Irish people, but certainly for some of us, we have like as you say that it's there's us and then there's the land, but we're all very much interconnected, and kind of just like the wholeness of it all, and stuff. And it seems to be that yoga is growing in popularity, has been for decades, but it seems to me in the last few years it certainly is. And
to be honest with you, I think
people could
yoga was
benefit
made
from
for. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you there.
not at all.
I
Please
think
do
yoga
anytime.
was made for these times. Yoga, it's happened. Like once again, it's a process. There's all these yoga teachers because they're needed at this point in time. And I'd go further than yoga is what he stop all wars, because when you realize that you're not the only person you need to deal with is yourself, and there's no point in looking outside. You just find your own inner peace. When you realize that all these wars are started by people who are just acting out of their wounded child.
Yeah.
That is the reality of it. Yeah.
Like President himself.
Like all sorts of people. There's no need to name them. All we can do is just realign ourselves and heal our own inner child.
One last question for you. Something you mentioned earlier that struck me as interesting. So, the is that like monastic chanting? Is that or you know what I mean, or like is there a connection?
Well, the a lot of yoga classes will end or begin with that sound, that sound.
Yeah.
And
sorry, I guess the question I'm asking is there a connection between that and not just Irish monastic chanting, but my understanding is that Celtic monastic chanting actually comes from part of India or Egypt or something, but there's certainly a thousands of year old connection there, and a way to access.
Yeah, and there's a lot of similarities between Irish language and Indian language, but also other languages as well, like Lithuanian as well.
Really.
Yeah, so it's the same thing. If you go back far enough, the roots of all language sure come from the same place.
Same place, of course. Yeah.
When I was in the retreat centre by the Boyne, this lady used to come. Her name is Vetra. She chants. She does these ancient Baltic chants from Eastern Europe. But her mother is the head of the Baltic pagans, and her mother came to do a workshop. And it was a very strong, energetically powerful workshop. It was fantastic. But somebody just looked over to me and said, "Do you realise that this is like having the Pope in your house?" And I'm not joking you. The energy was just electric.
You could feel it.
You could feel it, yeah. Which is very, very interesting. And that's kind of like, that's a lady. And it was very interesting. Even around the time the Pope died, you could really feel the energy of that lady somehow there as well. But this girl Vetra, who lives in Dublin, she does a lot of those chants, and they're really, really powerful. We would have had them at the yoga festival, and it's like the land can feel that those chants. Yeah.
Would you consider yourself to be pagan, or have paganist beliefs, or incorporated some aspects of it, or?
Well, do you know something? What does the word pagan really mean? I really think most things go beyond language at this stage.
That's fair.
Yeah, I really do. And everyone can have a different interpretation of any word as well, you know. So I think we're going back to a place where it's beyond words. It's about reconnecting.
Yeah, you mentioned it earlier. Like pre-language, and communication was by different means.
And what's coming now is a lot of light language, a lot of people who are really highly evolved and kind of have a nice fine vibration, or use just the light language is coming out. Just
I wonder if that's if it's something to do with the increase in numbers of people that are not who are turning to yoga and other ways and means of dealing with the way life has been over the last while, and how difficult it is and how stressful it is, and we're looking for a connection back to a more authentic time and place, and where we've come from and stuff. And it's certainly fascinating times to be involved in yoga. I might come and do a class if you're interested. That's cool.
You'd be very welcome.
I should ask, how do listeners find you, or where do we find you? You've got a website, do you? Or
I have a website, redriveryoga.ie.
Yeah.
And you can find me on Instagram, Red River Yoga Retreat, and
Red River
Facebook
Yoga
is
Retreat,
Red River Yoga. Yeah.
Red River Yoga on Facebook.
Yeah. And then the Minalty Yoga Festival, Instagram, website and Facebook page as well.
Very good. Well, Marion Gilsenan, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for joining us today on the Business Hour podcast.